I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I think Karen is on her way. If we'll stand now and have our moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have the branch manager, Jennifer Crenshaw. She's going to give us an update on the Clemson Central Clemson Library.
Central Clemson, yes. Hi, honestly, I'm Jennifer Crenshaw. I'm the branch manager here. I've been here for about 12 years. Good. Do I need to be?
You're fine.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It's fine. So I am very pleased to be able to have just a minute to talk to you a little bit about our branch and tell you a little bit about some of the things that are unique and special and highlight some of our resources, one of which you just heard. If you think it is not a fun day to be in story time and have that train go off and see 17 little children go flying to the window, it is a great joy and a big part of being part of our community, especially here in Central. One of the other things that makes us unique, of course, is the giant tiger in the room. We are very much the branch in the middle of the University Village, and not just Clemson, but also, of course, Southern Wesleyan and Tri-County Tech. For those students, we do see a lot of them here. Our study rooms are used almost continuously. This past month, we had over 240 reservations in our 3 little rooms. We have a huge advantage in that we have parking in a lot of ways. That is a huge thing, especially for the university students. One of the other things we'll be doing in another couple of weeks that is unique to our branch is we will be staying open until midnight during exam week for our students to give them an opportunity to have some space. To hunker down and do what they need to do, and that is absolutely quiet library time. It's kind of interesting to see how loud we get when there's nobody else and everybody's trying to be quiet. You don't realize how loud you are shelving and knocking over things. And it's been a bit of a challenge, but I am a night owl, and I'm the one that loves it the most, I think, to be here until midnight. Our friends of the library are kind enough to provide coffee and refreshments and snacks for everybody as well. So before COVID, we would average maybe 200. Since COVID, it's dropped off a little bit. We'll have probably 125 students here, but the ones that are here are usually very grateful, and we sometimes get thank you notes and all kinds of wonderful things. But they are very much a part of our community, and we're very, very, very much here to help them, assist them in any way we can. Another thing we have done in recent years is we have added notary service to our library. It became apparent, just from demand, people asking, but we began to realize, too, that here at the library, we're here nights and weekends. We're here until 9 o'clock, and we're here on Sundays and Saturdays. So that gives people a different time and opportunity as opposed to trying to hit somebody at town hall or at different stores or wherever at the bank. We're able to provide that service for people as well. Right now, I am the only notary, but we've had some staff turnover, and I am anticipating adding at least one more. In the past 6 months, we've probably done 75 or so notarizations for people. I mean, it's not a huge service, but for the people that need it, it is a huge service to be able to do that on those weekends. One of the other things, of course, recently for us too has been early voting. We were an early voting site, and that brought in about 7,500 extra people into our branch, some of whom we know and some of whom we don't. So if nothing else, it's been really great exposure to get people in the door that may not ordinarily come to the library and have a chance to see what we do and that we do add something that they may not use. We're at least a resource for that. We're also the only branch that actually serves as a polling place on election day. So we had another 650 or so that came to vote at the West Central Precinct. On a more fun note, also in the coming weeks, our staff for the past 10 or 12 years have volunteered to go and represent the library in the Christmas parade. So we are heavy into Christmas parade float building. That has become my new side hustle. If I retire, I may have to become a contractor and just, contract those services out. But our biggest and best float is coming this year. We're going to be reindeer wranglers, so please come look for us and wave at us because we have a blast. And since it is sort of a volunteer event, it's also a family event. Our staff get to bring their children and that sort of thing too, and it's a lot of fun to get to see everybody and just have a good time to get together.
Won multiple trophies.
We have won a trophy of some sort every year. We're very competitive. And that comes from me and April. If you know April, she is my Martha Stewart by far. And I can think it, and April is 6 steps down the road at having it done. So we really make a great team. And I do have an incredibly great team here. And sometimes I feel like it is my job just to show up and not screw it up. They're great. They just do their thing, and I try to do mine and keep them where they need to be and keep everybody supplied and updated and trained and those sort of things. But I am one of 2 people working tonight, so I am going to slip back out to be the second person on the desk this evening. But before you leave, if you would like to, please come through and take a lap of the library, come look around. We'll be happy to talk to you at any point given time. We're here almost all the time. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Y'all have a great night. Do you have any questions or anything?
Does anyone have any questions for her?
Great job.
Okay. All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Y'all have a good night.
Good luck with the float.
Thank you.
And we'll have public comment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per participant for a total of 30 minutes. First, Brittany Fowler.
Good evening, board members. My name is Brittany Fowler, and I was born, raised, and I'm a current resident of Pickens County and a passionate advocate for our libraries. During this season of gratitude, I find myself reflecting on the many things that make our community such a truly special place. Among the top things I am grateful for is our library system, a hub of learning, connection, and support for all ages and all walks of life. Our library is not just a building. It's a space where ideas grow, where individuals find resources, and where our community comes together. I would like to take a moment to thank each of you for your service on the board. I know being a board member requires a great deal of time, effort, and dedication. The decisions you make will have a lasting impact on our library and, by extension, on the lives of everyone who resides in Pickens County. Your commitment to helping our library thrive is something that does not go unnoticed. To our librarians and library staff, thank you for your unwavering support and care in serving our community. You are the heart of the library system, and your work enriches the lives of so many people. From children discovering new worlds through books, to adults seeking knowledge or just a quiet place to think and read. The programs you put on are first class. It is because of you and the work you do that Pickens County has a library system worthy of bragging. I am so grateful for all you do to make our community even better. Finally, I want to thank all the members of this community who support our library, whether through their time, donations, volunteering, or use of library services. I want to thank the Friends of the Library, several of whom are here tonight, for their work to help advocate and support the library. It is this collective effort that makes our library system such an essential part of our lives and community. So I want to say what is not said often enough. I think our libraries do a fantastic job at serving our community. The services you provide, the programs you host, and the resources you make available are enriching the lives of so many people, and I am extremely grateful. To the board, to our librarians, and to all those who make the library a thriving part of Pickens County, thank you for all that you do. The work you do is Your work is deeply appreciated, and it truly makes a difference in the lives of so many. I know it's certainly impacted my life in so many wonderful ways, and I'm truly grateful, so thank you.
Kathleen Campbell.
I love that speech. Library Board, you are entrusted with our public library. Like the state manual reads, the success and failure of the library rests on the library board. We, as some would suggest, are not a small group of complainers. All across our nation, people are standing up and speaking out to the cancer that has invaded the public library system, bringing awareness to books that are pervasively vulgar, books filled with damaging and destructive material. Our state has passed a proviso in defense of children restricting access of books of prurient interest to minors under 18. I passed out a list of some of those books. I included this. I think you guys have this. I'll be talking from this. I left a list on your spot that was just formulated this week of such books that are in absolute violation of the proviso, the law. These are books that are shelved in the juvenile and youth section. And by your continued affirmation, display, and promotion of such books, allowing these books to remain on the children and youth shelves, I cannot imagine that you as a group and as individuals are not guilty of breaking the law. That should in itself put every one of you on notice, but there is something else I want to point out to you. Notice the last column of this spreadsheet, this one here. This column reflects the location of these same books that are in the Pickens Library. This last column shows where they are located, if they are located in the Greenville Library database. 1/3 or 11 of the 33 books are not in the Greenville Library collection. Greenville does not carry 1/3 of these books that are rated 4s and 5s on the booklooks.org. And of the books that are on this sheet at the Greenville Library, they are listed in the adult section, not in the juvenile or the teen section. We have a problem. Think about this a minute. We live in Pickens, the most conservative county in our state. How is it that we have vulgar books that Greenville does not even carry? With every rejection that we receive from our reconsideration request, it is stated that the library is for all people. Well, isn't the Greenville Library for all people? Why are these offensive and obscene books not in their library? I once again appeal to your logic and your...
Thank you. Thomas Geisler.
Yeah, my name is Tom Geisler. I've lived here for 11 years. And to be a child in America is pretty tough nowadays because you've got drugs, you got trafficking. It's really tough. And I don't like it when we're promoting something we shouldn't promote in our libraries. You know, my wife said, why can't we have a Bible study time in the school library or the public library if we can have trannies there? But anyway, that's just one question. And now the libraries across the country, all of them, they're bringing in this pornographic material. It's coming on like crazy. And how did it get there? How did this stuff get there? That by kicking God out, number one. Number two, I would like to know, are these books gifted or by publishers or authors? How did they get there? Or did we buy them? Did you buy them? I'd like to know that. I think we need an audit on that. That's just common sense. I ran a business. I had to have an audit regularly. As a side note, there's 69 registered sex offenders in Greenville. You know, they didn't get to be registered sex offenders by reading Grimm's fairy tales, G-rated movies, and listening to classical music. They got it somewhere. And this is one place you don't want them to get it from. That's all. Is there any remedial courses that we can offer to children? I read this last time. 43%, we got 16,000 students in Pickens County. 43% are proficient in math. Only 43. 56 are proficient in reading. We have got to get these disciplines up. Have you looked at any research where we could get some remedial courses in the libraries to get these scores boosted? Galatians 5:19. Now the deeds of the flesh are evident: immorality, impurity, and sensuality. I got a problem. As a father and a grandparent, I got to keep my kids away from this stuff, and my grandkids. And you're not helping the situation when we have a corner of our library which is pornographic in comic form. That's amazing. Ephesians 6 says, "And fathers, provoke not your children to anger, but hold them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord." That's a given. I have to go by that because I happen to be a Christian. I assume everybody else here is. I don't know. I mean, I've got to go by. I got to provide this. In Proverbs 22:6, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." That's how we start with our young children. And it's dangerous when you bring this in. Porn is not literature. It has no redeeming value. Let's all grow up. Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever man sows also..."
Thank you. Jesse Henley.
Thank you, distinguished members of the board, Madam Chairman, Director, and staff. Good evening. I would like to express some concerns with regard to the use, or misuse rather, of the word maturity as it relates to our children and young adults consuming graphic material of prurient interest. I only bring this up because a few of you believe that there are children that are, quote, mature enough to consume sexually explicit content. To be sure, maturity, as defined in the context of what we're talking about, is quote, the state of being mentally and emotionally well developed and therefore responsible. Personally, I've never met a child that fit that definition. The National Institute of Mental Health and the National Institute of Health and others say that a brain doesn't even stop developing and maturing until the mid-20s. If the consensus among experts is that brains aren't fully developed until the mid-20s, then it would be safe to assume that most brains aren't mentally and emotionally well developed until the mid-20s. Mental maturity does not occur until the mid-20s. So if that's the case, how in the world are we then able to assert that some children are mature enough to consume what is generally believed to be adult content? Please explain. My wife and I know of a family who are right now struggling with how to cope and deal with their young boy who decided to sexually act out on his own sister what he saw in the sexually explicit material. I don't think the parents are saying, "Attaboy, I hope that was very educational. I hope you learned something on how to have sex." Just because a child appears to be more well-behaved than another does not mean that he or she has a mature capacity to handle books that are as egregious as Push or Sold, etc., etc. And just so we're clear, this is not a conservative issue. It's not a liberal issue. This is a common sense issue. This is an issue that should appeal to your moral instinct as human beings made in the image of Almighty God. And even though you're not the ones directly responsible for what children read in these libraries, make no mistake about it, you are responsible for making it available to them.
Thank you. Carol Lawson.
Hello. I grew up in Pickens. Some of my fondest childhood memories is going to the library. My library card was my key to the world. I loved being able to read and discover new things, people, and places. I remember getting so excited about calling the Storytime line on a rotary phone at home. Oh, how libraries have evolved since I was a kid. I was blessed to have children. What great times we had going to the library. Money was tight, and we had to take advantage of all that the library offered. We did not just do books and movies, but we did the story time, arts and crafts, presenters, etc. We always had something to do at the library. My children are now in their 20s, and I feel they still enjoy all that the library offers them, just as they did growing up with the books, programs, and all the resources that are now available to them. Heck, I still love it. I don't always have time to sit and read books. I utilize the Libby system a lot. I enjoy the spice kits that I get. I'm in a book club. I even checked out a giant Connect 4 for a party. I took a class on calligraphy. This week I met a local author at the author event. The list goes on that I use the library. So I'd like to say thank you for everything that you do to engage and include all residents of Pickens County. I also would like to share what I experienced while volunteering at the fall book sale last month. That Friday evening, I was manning the main floor area by directing shoppers where to go upstairs. I also encouraged them to take a bookmark from the bookmark contest and to vote for their favorite miniature paintings that were on display. I met a couple of the past bookmark winners telling me how excited they were that their bookmarks were published and people could take them. I had the pleasure of meeting a couple where the wife had her artwork on display. She was asking them, which one do you think is mine? You better vote for mine. She said this was a great experience for her and she had a lot of fun. I hope she won for how excited she was. A young family that I met was a husband's first time coming to the library. They moved to the area about a month ago, she said. The wife was talking about how she and their 18-month-old spent a lot of time at the library, reading to her, looking at books, enjoying the picnic tables outside, and doing the wiggles and giggles. She wanted him to see the children's area. I walked him over so he could take a peek. He said that was the biggest and most beautiful library he had ever seen. How awesome was that to hear? To top off the night, a father and daughter came in because they thought the library was open for regular business. They had no internet since Helene had hit. She had online schoolwork that she needed to do. Instead of having to go back to their car and finish it in the parking lot, they were able to sit at the table.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Craig Holcomb.
Good evening. My name is Craig Holcomb. I'm a resident of Easley. I want to thank the Pickens County Library Board for allowing me to have a moment to speak. I have 3 sons, ages 17, 15, and 2. When my oldest boys were younger, we spent a lot of summer days and weekends at the Easley Library. We'd read books to them at night and listen to audiobooks during the day, and in the mornings they read books about science and technology and history and video games, and they grew to be incredibly smart young men. My oldest boy just got accepted to Auburn University for an engineering degree, and my middle son is in several honors classes in high school. Clearly, the library system played a big part in their success. But we also expressed to them diverse stories of different people and different viewpoints and different histories, stories of young people of color and what they've been through in our country's history, stories of queer people. From those stories, they learned how to respect others, how to see perspectives outside their own. In essence, they learned how to be kind. And that I'm far more proud of than their intelligence, and the library system owes to their success and kindness as well. I just wanted to basically vocalize my support of the library and having diverse stories within the system, stories of poor people, queer people, people of color, disabled people, and all other kinds of people, because I believe diverse reading creates diverse minds, and it leads us to much more kindness in our community. Thank you.
Kate Bird. Kate Bird.
Hello, I'm Kate Bird, a Pickens County resident and a longtime, extremely satisfied patron of the Pickens County Library. I would like to share tonight my concerns about a letter written by Senator Rex Rice to the agency director of the South Carolina State Library. This is the same letter mentioned during the public comments portion of last month's meeting. I obtained a copy from the Senator's secretary. In the letter, Senator Rice describes how he tasked several constituents to rate the books in the Pickens County libraries to assess if they follow the proviso requirements. He attached a list of 27 books the constituents felt were not in compliance. Senator Rice ends his letter by asking for assistance in coordinating with the Pickens County libraries to move the books on the list to an age-appropriate section. It was glaringly apparent these constituents were lay people without professional or specialized knowledge in library science. This is clear as the only source they used to substantiate the list of books was a website called booklooks.org. It only took a brief examination of the BookLooks website to find immediate problems. Authors who write the book reviews are not named, so it is impossible to determine if they have a professional background in education, literacy, librarianship, or child development. In addition, there are no names, no contact information, or any indication of the funding structure on the website. As a field professional, there are alarming issues with the book reviews. Whereas a professional review discusses writing style, characters, themes, and literary merit, BookLook reviews have no analysis or thought from the reviewer. Instead, the focus is on short excerpts of what anonymous reviewers deem objectionable material. To recap, Senator Rice relegated responsibility for rating the books in the Pickens County libraries to a few unnamed constituents who could not perform a simple website evaluation. That act is mind-boggling. To add insult to injury, he expects their findings to determine what is appropriate for all Pickens County residents. I sincerely hope the board sees the absurdity of this overreach to implement his proviso, which is widely acknowledged by both law experts and library professionals as subjective and vague, while undermining established library policies. I thank you for your time.
Janelle Rains.
I've lived here for 21 years in Pickens County. Retired teacher, master's degree in early childhood education. I consider myself professional. I would like to see the children's book, Johnny the Walrus, by Matt Walsh, moved to the children's section of the library. Stephanie Howard, the library director, included this statement in her denial letter to me. Quote, "The library seeks to maintain a well-balanced collection with up-to-date information, which represents all sides of controversial issues. The library patrons are given the responsibility and free will to interpret as well as choose materials which support their own beliefs and attitudes. The library affirms the right of adults to choose their own materials and that parents are solely responsible for materials used by their children. The book Johnny is a Walrus is a children's board book. I donated it to represent all sides of a controversial issue. And since then, someone has checked it out and not returned it. Promoting children to think just one way is definitely not wise. Pushing children to think that they can actually turn into animals or become the opposite sex is indeed a controversial issue. We have several minors in our community who claim that they are furries, and some who claim they are the opposite sex. Here are some books on Pickens Library website that have been placed in the children's section and are very similar to Johnny the Walrus. Jacob's New Dress, 10,000 Dresses, Julian is a Mermaid, My Princess Boy, When Aiden Becomes a Brother, and Morris Micklewhite and the Tangerine Dress. So my question is, why isn't the book Johnny is a Walrus in the children's section? to prove you have a well-balanced collection that represents all sides of a controversial issue. 2 years ago, Johnny is a Walrus was named the #1 best-selling book in the LGBTQ category on Amazon and was never purchased by our librarian. I had to donate it. So if you truly believe a well-balanced collection that represents all sides of controversial issues, and one which patrons can choose material that supports their own beliefs and attitudes, then you should move Johnny the Walrus to the children's section.
Thank you. Zach Shaw.
Dear board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Zach Shaw, and I'm the pastor of Jones Avenue Baptist Church in Easley. I'm also a husband and a proud father of 4 children. The Bible exhorts us to let all things be done decently and in order. I want to speak that way tonight. However, I dare say the language and the graphic pictures in these books making their way into our public library are anything but decently and in order. To speak of the explicit pornography in these books is anything but decently and in order. To look at these pictures and the graphics used in these books is anything but decently and in order. The Bible also exhorts us to bring up our children in the nurture and in the admonition of the Lord. I'm here tonight to say to you and to anyone listening, there is nothing God-honoring about these books and the graphic pornography that is displayed in them. The material of these books in some cases show scenes that should only be reserved for that of a husband and wife in biblical marriage. Sex is to be reserved for that relationship. Yet some of these scenes are outright sinful and disgusting, even depicting 2 men engaged in sinful sexual activity. This should be a crime and not something that is given to our children in the public library to see. We say tonight that we care about our children, and we should. Let's demonstrate that tonight by standing against this evil of our day. The Bible, the blessed Word of God, stands against homosexuality of any kind. The Bible calls it a sin. It calls it an abomination. The Bible says, for this cause God gave them up unto vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was met. We must stand against propagating pornography to our children, and especially against promoting homosexuality to our children at such a young age in these books. We must stop promoting a sinful lifestyle before our children. It is sinful, it is sick, and downright satanic. God help us if we don't care any more for our children than to continue leading them in a lifestyle totally against the nature of our holy God. I speak tonight before you as a concerned husband, a concerned father and pastor, as a Christian, a church member, and even a community member. I'm concerned for our next generation, concerned for the well-being of our children and that generation to come. Board members, tonight I encourage you by the mercies of God, remove these books. Ban these books from our library and never let them in our libraries for the eyes of our children to see. If we love our children, if we care about our children, and if we care about our community, let's once again promote Christian values and books that honor that. Thank you.
Deborah Smith. Deborah Smith. Is Deborah Smith here? No. Okay. We'll move on. Do we want to move the podium then?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I've noticed tonight that we have a distinguished senator, state senator, Rex
Yes,
Rice.
I was going to get to that. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, Danny. Yes, Senator Rex Rice is here in our audience tonight. Since we didn't have a person here, did you want to speak in that place?
I'm fine back here. I'm here to host the proviso with something that I sponsored, and I'm here to try to answer any questions on that. Thank you, board, and all the
All right.
staff.
Thank you. Okay. No, we don't, unless you need to sign up for the public comment. Sorry, or you, you can, I'm sorry, we cannot.
We talking about books? How did they get,
I-
books get there from the get?
The sheriff.
I mean, how did they get
We can't, there's a time for you to sign up to talk, and this is not it.
We'll sign up for the next one, but I think that this
All right, you go ahead.
for our parents. I'm a parent.
Okay, thank you,
Kids.
thank you.
All right, I'll see you. Let's stay loving and caring for each other.
Um, Everyone had a chance to go through and look at the minutes and read them? Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the minutes?
I'd like to.
The library board meeting, I'm sorry, let's do one at a time. The library board meeting of October 17th.
I'd like to add one comment. It refers to a comment that I made that said, Mr. Wheeler mentioned it's good to have plans for what to use the foundation money for. And I'd just like to add, because the foundation is a nonprofit organization. I wanted to add that as a clarification. The reason why you need to have a plan for the use of the money is because it is a nonprofit.
And where is that at?
It's right here. I just give it to you.
Page 3.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other corrections or additions?
I know this is just a typo, but I'm probably doing this for my husband's sake. It's Mr. Childers on here, it should be missing. Number 3. I don't think he wants to be a part of it.
Okay, with those corrections, do I have a motion to approve as corrected?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, approval for the library renovation committee meeting that was held on October 15th. Any questions or comments on that? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. The library budget committee meeting on October 16th. Any questions or discussion?
I would just suggest that the title read minutes and not agenda. It's just a typo.
Oh, yeah.
I did catch it.
Did you? Yeah.
Not before I printed it.
Okay. Anything else? Any other corrections or additions? All those in favor of approving, or do I have a motion to approve? I'm sorry, the minutes.
I make motion.
Susan. Second. Karen? All those in favor? Unanimous. The Library Foundation Committee meeting held on October 17th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. And the Library Foundation Committee meeting held November 14th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have that? Yes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion again.
Karen, a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, the library's director's report.
I don't have much tonight. I did want to make a note that the foundation updated the bank account with new signature cards. Those on the account are currently Lori Osborne, Lena Hamilton, and Stephanie Howard, me. We did, early voting was great. Cassie's going to talk about statistics for that and the statistical report. And we had our second round of FEMA's Disaster Recovery Center. They moved out on the 17th. That was the second round, and that went well. We're working on solutions for our book ordering, which was discussed in the budget meeting minutes, to resolve the new county finance directive. We think that we have a solution for Overdrive and Libby moving forward, but are still requesting that the county allow us to process a payment for the debt to Overdrive of $17,000. We're still attempting to schedule a meeting with Baker and Taylor to formulate a new ordering process, and we will also need to make a payment to them to cover our outstanding debt. So it's not that we do not have the money, it's that they've changed the process, and now we have to do things a little bit differently. So we're reworking our workflow for book ordering. And I just wanted to let you know we voted on this last year, but our library system holiday hours will begin on December 16th. So we'll close a little bit earlier.
Stephanie, let me ask you, in terms of that, the book ordering.
We're having a hard time hearing. Really, I don't know if the mics are not turned on, but it's really hard to hear.
That's okay.
They're not those kind of microphones.
Yeah, I think they're mostly for the online, but we'll try to talk louder.
That's not a problem for me. In terms of the book orders, were any of the vendors willing to basically float the orders and allow you some credit instead of, previously you had been paying ahead and then books had been ordered. Are they willing to consider orders in advance and not have payment in advance, in other words?
They are. So the only meeting that we've been able to have is for Libby and Overdrive, which are our ebooks and e-materials, and they would allow us to do that. We're going to try to work through the process of just requisitioning $10,000 at a time, so that we can just keep the workflow going. But they did say that they would work with us. Our biggest physical book vendor is Baker and Taylor, and I think I'm guessing they're going to be able to work with us too. We just haven't had a chance to make that meeting happen yet.
Right.
It's hard to get a time with them.
Yeah. Well, that'll make your ordering process a lot smoother if they'll do that, given the constraints.
Yeah. I think they'll provide us with some options that'll work.
Did we ever reconcile why there's a $10,000 limit? Did that?
No.
No. Okay. So we still don't know why. All right.
Want me to go?
Yes.
Okay. I just have some numbers for you. We don't have a full statistical report, but we wanted to let you know what these numbers were just because it was timely for us. So we did some major numbers with having early voting at the Easley Library and at this library. At the Easley Library, it was the largest early voting site in the county out of the 5 sites. We had 15,317 people cast their votes early at the Easley Library. And then here at the Central Clemson branch, we had 7,610, and they were the third busiest site for early voting. The second was the elections office at the county administration building. And Jennifer talked in her report how having these, partnering with these other, September we had 376. So it was a huge increase of new library users that we saw just because we had early voting here.
And that early voting was over a 2-week period, so 15,000 and something, in addition to our normal library users during that time.
Do you know how many people are coming in with the FEMA?
We don't yet, but I am going to get those numbers.
Do you separate it out for youth? Do you know that if it was youth or?
No, I just pulled the only number I can. We can, but I just have the total number. I think most of them were adult.
We kind of marketed it as, you already have your ID out. When you're done voting, go ahead and go in and get your library card or update your account. And I think people took advantage of that. Financial report.
Yeah.
So the financial report looks good. I did highlight some things. As y'all know, I'm not the only one that's able to get in there and move things around and adjust our budget. The finance director at county has the ability to do that too. There are things that are highlighted that are not in the budget that we presented to council. There are things that he has added. So I'm going to have to investigate why those are added and if they should be in other categories to correspond to the budget that we presented. So I did want to point those out. If you're seeing things that like, hey, that wasn't on the budget that we presented to them, that's why. We need to figure out what's going on there. And it looks like there are things that just need to be moved under another category.
What does data line mean, that line item? Do you know what that means?
No.
Okay.
I'm guessing it needs to go under telephone. But I need to get with him and our bookkeeper who was new but is now leaving, so I'll have to investigate what's going on there.
So where is Canopy on this budget?
Canopy would come out of state aid. Books. Yeah, books.
So it's
all
included in
ebooks.
books.
Yeah, it includes ebooks. We use state aid first, and then we go into our local book funds. But physical books, ebooks, some of our library of things, our Wi-Fi hotspots come out of that budget. Things that are able to be checked out.
And I might point out that it looks like you're right on target with all the personnel costs, which means there won't be this surplus this year.
Right.
It looks like. I wondered about the overtime. If we've consumed 50% of our overtime budget.
So overtime is not how you typically think of overtime. It's if we have part-time staff that are 20 hours,
Yeah.
it's anytime they go over that 20 hours,
Right.
it comes out of that budget line. So when you think about things like staff that need to stay early or late for FEMA, part-time staff that are going over their 20 hours, of course they can't go beyond 29. And then when we have staff shortages, those part-timers have to fill in for staff too. And we can not have vacancies, but we also, have people that are out on FMLA and things like that. So there are staff that are covering that. So that is overtime hours.
Right.
So that's what that is. And we can move, if we need to, we'll just
Right,
move money
right,
into that budget.
And we can also get reimbursed from FEMA for the time that we're spending being, the overtime hours that are being spent with FEMA being at the library. Right.
That would go through county. I think they're gonna just do that all in one
Okay, but we should,
application.
and hopefully it will reflect on our line item too,
Yeah.
that it was reimbursed from.
So there's full employment right now?
Can't hear you.
There's full employment? There are no open positions?
No. We have a part-time position here at Central, and then our part-time position here, and then our bookkeeper is leaving, and then we have 2 part-time people at Easley that are leaving soon, so we'll have those vacancies. But
those are things we're anticipating.
Yeah.
No activity on the foundation report this month. We should have some things that will show on next month's that have come in that we are aware of.
And the Friends of the Library report.
We'll scoot that out for you. We'll scoot this out for you.
Hi, my name's Kelly Boland, and I represent the Friends of the Pickens County Library System. As Friends, our mission is to support the public libraries of Pickens County by raising funds volunteering with and promoting programs, and advocating for the library's needs. Currently, we have 183 active members. Dues from our members and money from our fundraisers support our libraries and library staff. We provide holiday and library week gifts and buy lunch at the yearly staff retreat. We fund events like the Student Exam Week study hours here at the Central Clemson branch. We've paid to get notaries in Liberty and here in Central Clemson. We help fund the passport services in C Library in Liberty. We've purchased special early literacy computers in Pickens. And we provide the prize money for the yearly bookmark and poetry contests, and the list goes on. That's just a few of the things. Historically, our library system had 4 distinct friends groups, one at each branch. But in recent years, we've unified. This shift allows us to adapt and grow with our county, as well as streamlining the functional procedures needed to operate a nonprofit organization. So in the past, each of the 4 groups had their own president, vice president, secretary, etc. But our unified board has one of each, allowing other members to use their interests and talents in other ways. We have an executive committee consisting of a president, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer, and we have 5 area reps, 1 from each branch district and 1 at-large rep that can be from any area of the county. We also have 5 standing committees headed by a chairperson: membership, PR communications, events and fundraising, book sales, and advocacy. And we look forward to sharing our achievements with the board.
Thank you. Okay, Karen, did you want to give a committee report on the foundation committee?
I would love to. So pass that down, board members. Okay, hopefully I'll be not loud enough. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a loud person, but I will do my best. So, for the foundation committee, as Pat mentioned earlier, the foundation is, and even though we're a committee right now, it's really, the foundation is its own 501c3. It's a nonprofit with its own bylaws. So we're starting to talk about that now in the committee and moving the foundation board together. The last meeting, we talked about fun things like naming rights for library spaces. We saw a list of rooms that are available for naming, and we need to start working on policy to talk about how we're going to do that. We also talked about, and I passed out this sheet to everybody, we updated the dollar amounts for the leaves and the other items on the sort of donor tree at the Hampton Library. We've updated those dollar amounts from when they were established, like in, 1924 to this, to this century. So, for example, the family donor leaves were $50. We've updated that to $150, the contributor stones from $500 to $1,000, just to bring them more into, I don't know when those dollar amounts were set, but it was a very long time ago. So
2005.
Okay, so we're
when
bringing
the library
it
was
into
built.
Okay, so it was this century, but,
Yeah.
we also agreed that every library branch should have the opportunity to also have one of those donor trees, and that each branch could decide, maybe they don't want a tree, maybe they want something that's more reflective of their community. And then we talked about a lot of ways to publicize the foundation, because I've said it before, it's a very good secret in the county that we have a library foundation, so I really want to work on publicizing that so we can raise money to do good things for the library. So I'm just, can you bear with me? Do I have time just to kind of hit home the purpose of the foundation, which is to raise funds to support library programs and services and the future development of the library system. And this is where it gets interesting because it uses the word unusual. Assets of the foundation should be used to provide support for unusual or innovative programs and services at the library, including but not limited to a building fund, and to provide funds immediately for unusual or emergency projects where funds from government sources are not readily available or would, in the opinion of the Board of Trustees, not be forthcoming. So that is our mission, that is our purpose for the foundation. That's pretty clear. The first thing we need to do is establish a board of directors for the foundation. I mean, we're meeting as a committee, but we really actually need a board. And the board can be made up of 9 people. At least 2 library board members need to serve on the foundation board. Up to 4 friends of the library can serve on the foundation board. 1 member of county council should serve, or someone appointed by county council should serve. And then the library director serves as an ex officio member with no vote on the foundation board. The library board will need to vote on who the foundation board members are. So what I'm hoping is that the next library board meeting, we can have a vote on starting to form members for the foundation board. Does that all make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So that's part of the planning. So we'll work on that to have a vote for our next meeting. I feel like we can, once we have a board formed and bring in members, that we can actually really make progress for the foundation. And also the bylaws are like 2.5 pages long. They're the shortest bylaws I've ever seen. We need to work on those policies, update those policies, and hopefully maybe bring some suggestions on revisions for it at the next board meeting also. And then we also need to elect a chair and a secretary treasurer, and that can be the foundation board members can vote on that. The library board does not. Any questions?
So this will go into effect as of right now. So we
Great.
will start publicizing this for the holiday season so that you can buy leaves. And at the Easley Library, we have trees in the lobby area. There's also a children's tree in the children's area. And a lot of people don't know this, but where the Easley Library is, it's an old home place. So there's a magnolia tree. The trees out in front of that library, if you're looking at the library on the right side, the donor trees inside the library are to replicate those trees that were at the old home place where the library's built. So I think that's interesting. And
It is. I know everyone here is going to want to buy a leaf or a stone or a bird or a pine cone or something.
we have one son.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, new business?
I gave you all copies of the packets for Storm and Fury and Johnny the Walrus, which both have been appealed to the board, and those will be for you all to review and then vote on at the next library board meeting.
Okay, and the holidays, or the library schedule for 2025?
So
Everybody has that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So we've provided the library schedule. Everything is basically the same except for 2 things that we've added. Is things that we sort of have run into over the years. One is that we would like to close just the Pickens branch on the day of the Azalea Festival. So that's Saturday. All of their staff are really out on Main Street anyway, participating in the Azalea Festival. All their parking is taken. So I think it would be better for them to be out doing their outreach on Main Street and close just that branch on that day. So the other libraries will be open. And then in May, we would like to have another staff training day. The Pickens County Library System used to have 2 training days, and in library systems I've worked at before, you do have 2 training days. One is before summer reading, so you're getting everybody on the same page right before your biggest, busiest 2 months of the year. So half the day would be to get all the staff ready for that, and then the other half would be for training that we need to catch up on while everybody is in the same location. One of the things that we need to do if you approve this schedule in May is to get everybody trained up on the AEDs and CPR training. We have had some staff turnover since the last training that we did. And we had everybody had a CPR card and everybody was trained on the AEDs. And I would like for us to be there again where we have the majority of our staff trained in both of those things. So those are the 2 things that we've added to this list. And then along with that, you have the December holiday hours, which we've done for the past 2 years, and they've worked really well, the holiday hours for 2025. So this is where we just close a little bit earlier, the 2 weeks, 3 weeks around the Christmas holiday. And really, it's just a more efficient use of staff because less people are coming in, so we can resituate staff to be there when people are actually there. And it also gives them a little bit of time to, in the evenings, to go do their shopping. And so it's good for the patrons, good for efficiency, good for the staff.
Any questions for Stephanie? Do I have a motion to approve the holiday schedules?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. And old business.
We've got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So this is the proposed schedule of library meetings for next year. We did propose, or how we've proposed it is going back to the original schedule with the thought that you can call these committee of the whole meetings, these special called meetings to review books without doing the whole spending time on public comment and things like that. You can just get to business, like if we need to catch up on these books. I know that we tried that once before with the committee of the whole meeting. And so this is just how we're proposing it. I do know that it says in our bylaws that we can have no more than 10 meetings. So we can't currently, according to our bylaws, do 12. But I'll let you
And we won't call them committee of the whole because then we could not vote on the books if we were going to use that meeting.
So a special called meeting to address book reconsiderations.
Right.
So we can't have more than 10 board meetings?
Correct. That's in our bylaws, yep.
Okay.
And we hit 10 this year because we were doing one calendar at the beginning and then we changed, so we did 10 altogether, so we were still in compliance.
I see.
We can probably solve that problem tonight if we were to, if I could make a motion to vote not to have the December meeting next month. And
we don't have a meeting next month.
Yeah, we do. Well, we're in compliance now, right?
You are. That December meeting, that'll be 10, so you can have that one.
Okay.
But do you still want to make the motion not to have a meeting in December?
Yes, I'd like to.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I just have a lot to talk about with the foundation in December, but I guess I could wait.
That would also mean postponing the,
Right. Just the
two-
business.
The two appeals that.
That would push voting on those 2 books back another month.
To January.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion on the table to cancel the meeting in December? All those opposed? 4-3. Okay, so we'll have the meeting in December. Sorry, Danny.
That's all right.
But next year we won't.
Before we move on, to talk about the proviso.
Can I ask one more question about the schedule?
Yes.
That you said we can't have more than 10 the year, right? And that we can call a committee of the whole.
10 regularly scheduled meetings.
So like
That doesn't
in
include-
the January 16th meeting, we can say, okay, we want, in February, we want to have a committee of the whole meeting.
A special called meeting.
A special called meeting to discuss these books. Can we
Right.
do that every month?
If you wanted to, if you wanted to, if you needed to, you could call as many special called meetings as you needed to.
Okay.
Just regularly scheduled meetings, no more than 10. And you can always change the bylaws. That's just as it reads now.
Okay. I just don't want to fade away from
Right.
the business that we need
Right.
to
And,
conduct.
well, it's like you said before, that way you can get straight to the business, get it done. And if you have 4 books, you have time for those 4 books. If you want to do 5 books, I know we have a limit now, but just getting it done.
If you remember, we did that when we had a policy discussion meeting because, and it was very effective. It allowed us to actually study that in detail.
Yeah.
and-
Oh, yeah. I just don't want to get off.
Oh,
the-
no.
Yeah.
Get off the habit of what we need to do. That's all. Okay. can we
Yeah, I think we
not
would
set
have.
that in stone, but, I mean, because what if I just don't want to get off the
Yeah.
speed that
I
we're
think-
on.
Well, I mean, I think it's everybody's intention to work through that list.
Okay.
We need to work through the list. I don't think anybody would disagree.
And all the
with-
other business that might come up. too.
Right.
But that meeting would just be business. The special call meeting, we would just conduct business.
Okay.
And no public comment or anything like that. It would just be the business of reviewing the books and whatever other business like.
And
if we
we'd
had-
still have to advertise it.
Right.
Because public's still allowed to.
Yes, well, and because there's a quorum. Yes,
But we would still have at least six meetings in which we.
Right.
Yeah.
Regular business meetings.
Right.
And then you still have your committee meetings, all of that stuff. You just have
The-
6 regular, this style of meeting.
Just the conflict of schedules, that's all. I just, how it was hard enough getting everybody to come every month, which was awesome that everybody moved around. I just don't want it to fade off and someone go, well, I can't make it now, let's just skip this month. So, just for the record,
No,
I'm just saying,
I
I'm not saying it's
understand.
gonna happen. I
Yeah.
just want on the
Yeah.
record that monthly meetings I would like to
Yeah.
keep, if we could. Somehow, some way, some form.
We haven't voted on it yet.
I know. So do you want to go ahead and vote on the 6 that are here? Is that your intention? Or do you want to add maybe not every month, but
Would you maybe like a few, like 2 special called meetings set in stone so that everyone has that amount of, I'm just making up that number, but has that in their calendar so there'd be less likelihood of people not making those meetings?
Yeah,
Or-
just don't, I think we should already schedule them and just call them special committee already. Like we have January, February, April, in the middle of these, already schedule special committee. Maybe not a date, but have it set.
Special
for the
called
month.
meetings.
Special called meeting.
Well, I think if it's already set, it's not a special called meeting.
Right, does the name imply that you've
That it's not
established
a
this meeting
regularly
for a
scheduled
special
meeting.
reason, so, okay, so. Good point.
can we call it a business meeting?
I mean, we can look at what we need to call it, but I think her concern, which is
Right.
valid, is just that we have
We've got a lot
unanimous
to do, and I
agreement
just
that we're
don't
gonna
wanna
get these
stop.
books taken care
Yes.
of.
Agreed.
It's already too long. We need to
Well,
keep going.
I think solve the problem would be January meeting. We decide then if we want a special call meeting next month. And
Okay.
likewise on each one. We can determine as we go. And
So
it'll
we'll
be a
just put it on the
special-
agenda in January to vote on a special called meeting in February.
Mhm.
Okay.
But as far as publishing your regular meeting schedule, we need to do that at the beginning of the year.
So do we have a motion to approve this for the regularly scheduled meetings?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second?
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, and then in January, we'll put that on the agenda to just.
That's a good plan.
Okay, Nancy?
Yes, I have to put something on the record that's been going on since July when I went to the Demon School.
Okay. Excuse me, let me just, if it's something that's not on the agenda,
It's not on the agenda, but it's very important, and I would like to have the right to say this.
And it is old business, right?
well, it should have been brought to the attention of either Stephanie or myself so that we could put it to the agenda, or at the beginning of the meeting, you could talk. That's usually how it's done.
Well, I'll remember that next time.
All right.
What I would like to say is, during the August board meeting, I was publicly reprimanded during one of these meetings for attending that event, okay? During the September board meeting, I was told that I had been written up and the write-up was sent to HR. Yes, it's in the minutes, okay? So I asked for a report of that. I wanted to see it in writing, so I waited 2 weeks, never heard anything, so I started calling HR. I made 3 different calls to HR and asked for a call back. During the course of 2 weeks, never got a call back. So my next step was I went to Mr. Lawless and asked him about it. And Mr. Roper as well. They both checked with HR. There was no report that they could find, that they know about. So I feel like that was a lie, and it was made in public.
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
So it was not a lie. So there were, you and the other woman went to these employees and they filed an incident report. So there are files that they keep at HR, and I'm not over HR in any way, county HR. And there are files that we keep with incident reports at the library. So this incident report was part of an investigation into what happened. A library board member approached a staff member and made them very uncomfortable in their job. So that incident report is in that staff member's file, and it's part of an investigation. As part of the county policy, I cannot show you that incident report. We did find that out.
That's not legal. I have a right to see.
You do not, according to county policy.
Well, how?
So that report was filed. You weren't written up. It was an incident report that was filed by that employee to say, this is how I was treated by a board member. What you can do is write up your rebuttal to that, and I can also file it. That is allowed per county policy.
Well, why wasn't I ever told about that?
I've been researching it this whole time, so.
For 3 months?
There's your answer, yeah. It's a complicated issue that I've never dealt with before because a board member has never done that. And we're remedying that in several ways. One was the ethics policy. But that's your answer. That's what I can do. That's as far as I can go.
So it's not actually with the county HR department?
No.
But that's what I was told.
I don't believe I ever told you that because we don't have any. I mean, you can look at the minutes.
Did.
I never told.
You said you were in contact with HR also.
I was, to see what I could show in an employee file. Not that they have that file. We have separate files. So I never intended to mislead you. I certainly didn't lie. And a report was filed against you for your behavior when you went to that program by one of our staff members. So what you can do, according to county policy, is file a rebuttal of what you say happened, and I can file that. Is there any other questions?
I have a lot of questions, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. The old business, the state proviso.
Yes. So Lisa Aiken was kind enough to come and speak to this since I know y'all had questions. Did you want to start or?
I can.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry we were a few minutes late. We got in some Columbia traffic on the way up and got caught. So I apologize for that, but thank you all for having me. And I know I've met you all before on the board. Can everybody in the audience hear me okay? I'm going to try to project well. Okay. So I am Lisa Aiken. I'm the director of the State Library. I've been at the State Library for about 18 years. And I want to explain a couple of things to the group, Stephanie, if I could first, and then I can answer any questions that you may have. The first is I want to just applaud this community for coming and supporting the library. This is a great way to be involved in your library. We all don't agree on all things, but participation in your community library is really important. So I'm thrilled to see a room full of people. I know that you care about your library. Your library has high use and serves an important role in your community. So kudos to Stephanie and her team and the work that you're doing. And for you all for showing up out of your busy schedules and lives to come and talk about what's important to you and what's happening at the library. That doesn't happen in all communities, so I think that's fantastic. I want to explain the state library's role. So the state library has a couple of roles in South Carolina. One is that we offer consultation to public libraries. We do not oversee public libraries in South Carolina. There are 46 counties in South Carolina. We work with our public libraries on consultation on a number of different issues or items that could be finance related, HR related, collection development perhaps, programming for children, programming for seniors. We loan kits out to public libraries like VR kits, Lego kits, dementia kits, and so on.
That's one role that the State Library has. We are also the Talking Book Services Library, and so I'm going to use this 2-second plug for Talking Book Services is a service for people who are blind or visually impaired or who are not able to read books that are in traditional print order. So that could be somebody with dyslexia or someone who has a physical disability that prevents them from holding a book in a traditional manner. So we have a lot of veterans, for example, who use our Talking Book Services library, who've maybe lost a limb in a war, etc. Or somebody who has macular degeneration. That's a service that the state library has. Our primary service is as a state agency, we are the state's document depository. And so what that means is that every state agency creates state documents, DHEC, DSS, you name it. If they're a state agency, they create state documents. We are South Carolina's state library, so we have all of those documents from every state agency. That's a huge part of what we do at the state library. We also, if you have children who have been educated in South Carolina or you yourself have been educated or done any research in South Carolina, we are responsible for DISCUS, which is a K-12 online, yes, I see, yes, I see the nods in the audience and I'm so excited about that. Thank you for that affirmation. And if you're a teacher in the room, also, then you're familiar with DISCUS because we provide lesson plans and learning activities and test quizzes. We have SAT prep, ACT prep, work keys, et cetera, et cetera. So public libraries, we care about public libraries, obviously, but public libraries are part of what the state library is responsible for. We're also a federal documents depository for those of you who are interested in some of that. So our role in public libraries as a consultant, we do not set policy in public library. That's very important for this discussion. And the proviso 27.1 is not a new proviso. This proviso has been in effect since the early 90s. Proviso 27.1 is pass-through funds that go to county library systems. It's based on a per capita amount. In my tenure at the state library, it started at $2.50 per capita, which was in 2007, and you all remember the recession happened. That state aid went down to 72 cents per capita during the recession because state budgets were cut, right? And so now we're back up to $2.50. We've been fortunate to be able to get the minimum up from, I think when I started it was $45,000, and we've been able to get that increased, and we're now at $150,000. So this proviso is not a new proviso. State aid to county libraries is not a new proviso. This is something that the state library has been dealing with for over 25 years. That's important for this discussion, I believe. Then during this last legislative session, there were some additions added, which is really what I think you want to talk about, Stephanie, and not the proviso in its completeness, but there was an addition added that's prior to receiving any of these funds, county libraries must certify to the state library that their county libraries do not offer any books or materials that appeal to the purient interest of children under the age of 17 in children's, youth, or teen book sections of libraries and are only made available with explicit parental consent. That was an addition that was added. The budget passed sort of late in the session this time. For those of you who don't necessarily track the budget, it really was at the end of June, beginning of July. And so what the state library did was two things. We changed our certification form for county libraries to say, there's a new proviso. You have to certify that you have a reconsideration request policy, which Pickens County does, and you have to certify that you have a reconsideration request form, which Pickens County does, and that you have a collection development policy, which you all do as well. Because ultimately, in South Carolina, public libraries are responsible for their collection development. That is the legislation that governs public libraries. Now, state aid funds, those are separate funds, but the legislation regarding public libraries is that the local library board is responsible for your collection development policies. So we sent out guidance to our public library so that they knew that there was a change in the proviso. I'm a small state agency. I have about 52 employees who work at the state library doing all of those jobs. I didn't even talk to you about preservation. We have a whole preservation effort. We have cultural heritage things that we're working on. We have a digitization effort where we're digitizing all of our state documents and or historically important documents for South Carolina. So about 52 people doing all of those jobs. What we don't have is an attorney on staff. So for agencies my size, it's very typical for us to ask for an attorney general's opinion for guidance, which is what I did. And we received that guidance around the end of October, excuse me. I've had lots of meetings today. I apologize. I'm going to need water though. And I think, Stephanie, you've got it listed here, so I'm just going to go according to what you have listed and assume that you want me to cover all of these things. Senator Rice sent me a letter and said, essentially, at least I'm concerned that the public libraries may not understand the fullness of the proviso and the language, especially as it relates to the additional language that was added. And then also, I think the letter is published probably. There were some other parts noted in the letter, which I'm not going to attempt to summarize. And I responded to that and shared what we had done so far. Then we got the Attorney General's opinion, which said, yes, public library boards are responsible for their collection development policies and administering these requests for reconsideration, etc. And so then I sent additional direction out to the public libraries. We updated our form to make sure that we were including all of the language related to the proviso so that we were all certain that we were all talking about the same thing, although we have been. We included the new language in our form and then sent out further direction that related to this proviso. We've since offered guidance to public libraries, which you all probably haven't received. Stephanie has it, but I don't know that you all as board members have received that yet. But it's additional guidance from the South Carolina State Library, which is related to the collection development for minors. Do you want me to pause, Stephanie, or do you want me to keep going?
No, you're fine. I was just going to explain that you sent that late yesterday, and we've been in risk management training all day. So until I understood it and could answer questions, I didn't want to send it out yet until I had fully read it.
That's fine. So the guidance that we've offered for collection development for minors is that if a book, here's something important to know. The Motion Picture Association rates, I keep hearing this, well, why aren't there book ratings, right? Why isn't there a group who rates books? It doesn't exist. The Motion Picture Association rates our movies. That is a group that's been around since 1922. And there are teen movies, NC-17, rated R, I don't know all the PG, PG-13, etc. It's important for everybody to know that doesn't exist for books. There is not an agreed upon association that exists for rating books. So what happens is that publishers set the age range for books. So a publisher's age range may be 13 to 19. Well, I don't know about you all, but I've raised 3 children. And I'm a grandma. 13 to 19 is a really wide age range. And so that can be very problematic for librarians. Another category that publishers will use is something called young adult. That term over time, this is my opinion, that term over time has shifted from young adult to teens. And so my suggestion to public libraries and my guidance on collection development for minors is that if a publisher rates something from 13 to 19, then you have to go with the oldest age, and that's where it should be shelved, in the 19, which would be an adult. Young adult is a library, and this is my direction, this is my opinion on this. Young adult is a library term. It's not a term that parents use necessarily or the general public are familiar with. Young adult has slid sort of into teens, but the legislature very clearly defines people in 2 ways. You're either a minor, you're a child, or you're an adult. So you're 18 and over and you're an adult, or you're 17 and under and you're a minor. So our guidance on collection is in that following that same guidance and principles as the legislature has already set. I'll tell you, I have been inside the South Carolina Code for 18 years that I've worked at the state library, but I went ahead and looked through it again anyway to do a search. The legislature does not recognize teens. They don't recognize tweens. They don't recognize young adults. They don't recognize new adults, emerging adults. anything else that you can think of. You are either a minor, with a few exceptions like an incapacitated or emancipated child. Those are a couple of exceptions, but if we just keep it simple for libraries, you're a minor or you're an adult. So our guidance has been that materials are going to go in one of two areas. So there's a children's area. Now within that children's area, I recommend there being a teens area because you don't want your board books mixed with your chapter books, mixed with novels for teenagers. And then there's an adult section, and in the adult section, a library could have a young adult section, but that really is an adult, which starts at 18. And so 18 to where that ends could be, it's debatable, 25 to 30. But the primary, I guess the primary purpose of that is that it's either an adult book or it's not. And that is set by the publisher.
My concern, just because I've said it before, my concern is sprinkling books intended for 15 and 16-year-olds then in the adult section where there are adult books intended for adults, and then we're directing these teenagers into the adult section where there are books for adults that may not be appropriate for 15 and 16-year-olds.
So if a publisher has said that this book is for 15 to 16, then you should put it in your teen section. If the publisher says that the book is 13 to 18, 13 to 19.
That's the problem, though.
Then
most publishers say 14 and up.
Right, so then.
They don't give us a.
Here's the thing, and
So
I'm sorry to just speak very plainly, but publishers are making money. Like, that's their goal. Their goal is to make money. And I'm also not trying to be cynical, but a book that is controversial and continues to get airplay in your local communities, in national organizations, et cetera, they make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so there isn't a rating system. I think that if it says 14 and up, then it's up. That's going to be my guidance on it.
So in the adult section.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say that you could, obviously the young adult, I think you're going to have to keep a young adult area. But
With
that's
books.
again, like in your library, but again, that's still, an adult is the word in that phrasing. It is a young adult. So those are 18 is defined as an adult.
So,
Yeah.
I hope I put this down right. So young adult could be there could be a section.
In the
that's
adult
young
area, yes.
Adult, that's in the adult area, that's 18 to 25.
Yes.
Okay. That's what.
Excuse me, that's what, if I were a public library director, I would have a young adult section because they are interested in different, sometimes they're
Put it
interested
up
in
with the
different.
adult section though.
But it's still in an adult section,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you have a teen section as well. Again, I don't suggest having board books, picture books, beginning chapter books, early reading books, with right next to the teen books in the same genre. Like, that's not what I'm saying. You should still have areas within each of those sections that apply, that
Distinguish.
yeah,
the books
and
apart.
it's something that group of children would want to read.
So a 13 to 18-year-old, if that's what they say, that would be in the young adult section?
It would be in the yes.
It'd be in the
It would be young adult in the adult section.
Young adult in the adult.
Yes.
Are you, to clarify, you're saying physically, because we've discussed something similar, and I'm just pointing out the things that I've said before. In libraries like this, and libraries like our Pickens Library, it's going to be right there with it. So you want them physically separated, but in the adult section.
Yes.
And then
If you're able to do that, Stephanie, I mean, we have some very small libraries in South Carolina, and so it's a room this size, literally, in South Carolina, and so you all over here in this little corner might be the children's section, and then you all might be the teen section. It might all still be very close. I'm not suggesting, I certainly don't have any recommendations for how many feet apart it is. I'm just saying there are two different areas, two different populations of people. Within that population of children, again, there are different ages that you're serving, and so you would have materials separated.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is a complex issue, and these
It
things
is very
and-
complex,
And we
yes.
had thought about that before, and we're like, okay, is this the solution? But then again, what was pointed out was that then it's the librarian's responsibility to read and review every book for where it should go, And then that is on the librarian instead of having that responsibility and those rights afforded to adults who would like to choose their own books and parents who have the right to choose books for their children. We will have to go through that entire, because a lot of them say 14 and up. They don't give us if they gave us a precise age range, solved.
And
That's
it
where
would be
we
great.
put
It
'em.
would be great, but if you
But
were,
they don't. So
Yeah.
we are going to have to establish that and then place it in a section where it's going to be more difficult for everyone to find. And then again, it's my worry that we're directing teens into the adult section where there are things that I think are maybe appropriate for an adult to check out, and they have that right to, but now the teens are going into that same section.
So you're not directing the teens, because if it's 14 and up, then it's an up. So it's going into YA. So unless, and the library card application process is also important to this. I don't remember, Stephanie, what your library card, and I've just looked at so many, is the reason. If you want to remind me what yours says. But most of our public libraries in South Carolina, their library card says, if you are this age and a minor, you can check out materials, and a parent signs it. I'll tell you, in South Carolina, most of our public libraries, the age is 16, 17, 18. A lot of them are 18. We have a couple, I think the youngest age we have in South Carolina is 13, where a parent can sign the card and say, all right, my child can check out anything from the library, that's fine. But most of the library card applications already say that a parent has to sign for them to be able to check out materials. So that would achieve the objectives, thank you. That would also achieve the objectives of the proviso, that is with explicit parental consent. I think our library card applications do that. I verified that with our public libraries early in, or informed them your policy should provide explicit parental consent.
Our library card, our new library application allows the parents to provide consent into what sections of the library their children can
What
take books out.
collections, not physical, but collections.
Or put no restrictions, so they can say that a child can take out a book in any section. And it also has a place on the application where the parent can be notified what books the child is taking out.
Actually, this is much more robust than many of our library card applications, I'll tell you. So, I mean, I think it's fine. I want to look at it without the pressure of time, obviously, in a crowd of people to specifically. But most just say, yes, my child could check out a material from the adult section, and I'm fine with that.
This is more
Or they
detailed.
can't, or they
This is
can't,
more
you know.
detailed.
And should there be more specific signs to let the parents know in the children's section, more that there could be material or not material in there that, you know what I mean? Like if you move it, it's different, but if it's not moved and it's like 13 and up, but it's in the 13?
Well, 13 and up is still only going to go to 13 to 17.
Yeah, that's what I was
So it should be in the young adult though.
No.
No. If it's 13 to 7, if the book is 13,
It plus 13 and up is what the publisher's saying,
then I would move it to the YA section,
which would be
which
next
would be
to
in the adult section. The adult part of that word is important.
Okay.
Do I think that publishers are going to have, I think that this is going to be a bigger discussion on a national level. I do, and I think it already is a bigger discussion on a national level, but I, just not to geek out on library speak, but I do think it's important that we do have to go back to publishers and make some different requirements of them, because this has become so problematic for libraries. And librarians don't want to provide children with things that are not appropriate. Librarians also don't want to provide children with things that their parents don't want them to have. That's not a librarian's goal at all.
But on the other hand, we also need to protect people's rights and their right to select what they want to for their children. And that, I think that's where we need to find a resolution. And we're working on it, but it's not easy, you know. And the publishers aren't making it easier.
Right. So I do think there is going to be a larger conversation on this, and I hope that there is some change in designation maybe from publishers. But we have to remember this too. Publishers are thinking about this in a couple of different ways. One, can a 13-year-old read this book and comprehend the words that are in the book? Yes. So publishers are thinking about that in those terms. I don't remember the gentleman who spoke earlier. Maybe it was Pastor Shaw, I don't remember, but someone said a child's brain is not developed at this age for this. Okay, that's a parent's right to choose, all of that. But a publisher's not necessarily worried about that piece of it. It's, can they absorb what this word means? Is this at a 13-year-old's reading level? So we have to think about that too. When we're talking about library, who are we talking about? Where's the information coming from? And so as librarians, there is a part in that. And so I think our hope anyway is in providing this guidance that it can provide our public libraries who need some additional support in how determining where things go in the collection. This will provide that, and it also meets the objectives of what the legislature is trying to achieve with the proviso.
So I don't see the difference between having a young adult section and having an adult section in which you divide it and there's a young adults and adults. I understand what you're saying about the adults, but
That's a good question. So let me just go backwards for 1 second on that. The term young adult has slid to teen. And so those two words, young adult and teen, have become interchangeable in libraries. I've seen that happen in probably the last, COVID is strange for time framing. I don't know if you all feel the same way, but I would say within the last 5 to 10 years, I've seen those words become more interchangeable.
well, we define young adult here as 13 to 18. I mean,
We don't all agree with
you
that.
could
But it's not,
rename
though.
it teen if you wanted to, but it wouldn't change
Or couldn't you
the
just put it in
allocation of
adult
the
and
book.
not have the
Right,
young
it's
adult
really
at
not
all?
though. A young
Yeah.
adult really isn't 13 to
just
18.
take
Because
the
it's,
young adult out.
yeah, a young adult, it is a library term, but it is not it's not a legal term recognized, but,
I
you know, I mean, it's
understand.
not. And so,
I understand, but you could, if you want to, you could call it the teen section if it makes it more clear.
But if
Yeah,
it says
I think-
13 and up,
Well,
that's
yeah, I
not-
think
that's what
the
she's
young
saying.
adult part of it sort of says, hey, they're the older side of the
Yes.
spectrum in this
That's right.
collection instead of teen. Like, the way we use it in this system is young adult is for that collection.
Yeah.
Teen is more of what we use for our programming.
Right.
So, which is around 12 to 17.
I would be totally opposed to taking what is our young adult books or our teen books and making them part of the adult section. I mean, I think that actually works against what we're trying to accomplish.
And see how I can sit here
I
and say
just,
the
I don't
complete
see that,
opposite
that
of
doesn't
what
make
you're
any
saying.
sense to me at all. I'm
See,
Well-
I can sit here and say that it's complete opposite to you, that young adult is adult, 18 and older. I don't,
Yeah,
we could just do away with the young
if I may,
adult.
I think what parents see, as a parent, just as a parent, my people are older, as I said, I have adult children, 3 adult children. But I would say that the parents who are coming to the library understand the term teen. It's 13, it's 14, it's 15, it's 16, it's 17. And young adult, for most parents, which I have found is where this conversation is coming from, is really this group of people we're talking about, these young adult, teen people. Young adult, those are adults. They are young. I have young adults. My children are young adults. They're 19, 25, and 28. They're young adult people. I think most parents coming to the library would not say that they're teenagers or young adults.
No.
They are teenagers.
Yes.
They're minors.
So we're dealing with semantics. So
We are, but it
As a
matters to
parent,
how do
you're
you
not.
serve your public then? How does your public know
Sure.
what they're getting into when they come to the library?
Oh, well, I
we
think no
rename
matter
it the
what you
teen
call
section.
it, it's an issue of education, which
It is.
this is what we've been trying to do with the signage and things. If you call it teen, we need to educate the public on what that means. If you
That's
call
right.
it
We would
YA,
have
we
to
need to
change
the
educate the
term.
public on what that means. If there's studies or information to say that one is understood over the other, we can certainly change it, but then we're still going to have to educate them on, hey, this encapsulates this age range. So that's what you're looking at here. Just be
Yeah,
aware.
but where you place the book is what we're worried about. You can define young adult, juvenile, teen, but when you get a book in that says 13 and up and you're putting it in young adult, that means a 13-year-old can get that book.
But that would be where it would go, in the young adult.
But what she's
But not in
saying
teen.
is not a young adult.
Not
It would be
in teen.
18.
Not in teen, that's right.
It would go into young adult.
The suggestion then, if
Which is
the
a teen
publisher
adult
says, sorry, the age range is 13 to 17, it goes in the teen section.
That's right. If a publisher says 13 to 17, it goes in the teen
But if
section.
it's 13 and up, then
It is an adult book.
adult
It-
book?
It's still adult. You're either a minor or you're an adult. That's it. That's the South Carolina law defines you in one of two ways. With a few exceptions, with a few exceptions, like I said, like an emancipated child or incapacitated child, things of that nature. Otherwise, you're one of two things, the South Carolina legislature says. You're either a minor or you're an adult. That's it.
Okay, so then a way to avoid a 13-year-old looking for a specific 13 and up book in the adult section would be to have in a big sign in the adult section, these are the young adult books. I don't know how to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have if you have a young adult section, you're going to have young adults. I mean, you will have a sign that says young adult, for sure. And then again, back to the library card application. So then the parents are signing because there are plenty of parents who say that's fine for my 13-year-old to read books in the YA. I don't have any problem with that, or in the adult section. Think about it in these terms too. These are if you're doing a report on, I don't know, geology, there may not be many teen books that are geology-driven books, and so parents are going to want their children to be able to check out a geology book from the adult section. They're not all these books that are, we have strong feelings about, right? And so, right. So plenty of parents do give permission at the library card sign up, but the legislature's been pretty clear in the direction of this.
So back to the proviso.
Yeah.
State funding.
Mhm.
It can be taken away. Correct?
So the way the state aid works, I'm sorry?
If you're not in compliance with the pure interest.
So state aid can be state aid cannot be distributed. Can be not distributed, however we want to say that, if you don't meet certain requirements. It's not just this. There are a whole list of requirements, like your county funding can't drop. You have to have a professional librarian. You have to have an audit. You have to have all of these things. It's not just this.
Now, when you say audit, do you mean audit of the books?
No.
You mean
No.
audit of the budget?
Every year, the library has an audit of the budget.
Okay.
The county does as well. There are certain criteria. I didn't bring those with me, but I'm happy to share those, or you can look. They're on our website too. So what typically happens, I'll just explain this to you. Usually what happens at the state library is we send out the first quarter state aid automatically. And the reason for that is that we have libraries who are extremely dependent on their state aid. They would literally have to close their doors without their state aid, especially with our minimum amount at $150,000. Some of our small rural communities could not open the doors on July 1 if they didn't have their state aid funds. So historically, what we've done is we send out the first quarter state aid, and then we give a period of time for public libraries to get us all those various paperwork pieces. And then we send out their second quarter. It's divided into 4 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. This session, or this year, we did not send out state aid automatically because of this change in proviso. And so we required the certification form that you all have already completed, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you had. To say, we're aware of the proviso. We have a reconsideration request policy, because ultimately all of this comes back to your local board. I want to make sure that I'm really clear on that. Collection development policy, you have to have a reconsideration request policy. You have to have a reconsideration request form so that your population have a way forward to say, I don't think that the library should have this book, or I want the library to buy this book. Or I think this book is fine enough for adults, but I don't think it should go in this section. So the reconsideration request form is not just for books that you think aren't inappropriate. Sometimes they are, hey, I'd like for you to buy this book. Or I want you to move the book. So the state aid for this time, for this fiscal year, required compliance saying, yes, we have a way forward with it for people to be able to voice their concerns in our community. And so we ensured at the state library that everybody had those things in place.
Okay. Moving forward, is that still, like for next year, that's going to still be you have to have the form signed and turned back into you before the first quarter?
As long as the proviso is as it, yes, it will be. Yep.
And then thereafter, it just comes quarterly, no matter what?
It does, yes, because they've met the requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if you find the library has not met the requirements? How do you?
What requirement?
What if they're not in compliance? What if they're not?
Then their state aid won't be dispersed.
Will it be, can you have it refunded? Like if you already dispersed it and found out?
No, so my office isn't doing audits of your collection. Y'all are responsible for that. Not
You
audits,
who?
I'm not saying that. Your board, your local board is responsible. Stephanie is hired as the director, so she's responsible for collection management. You all are responsible for setting your policies that govern the library.
And
So
you said audit.
my team is not doing an audit of the collection.
So who does an audit of our collection?
That's not our role. Your
We as a
process.
board is?
No, your process and your policies serve as an audit, as the audit. So your community is essentially, so if somebody in your community has a problem with the book for some reason, then they fill out their reconsideration request form. That's why you have to have a process in place.
So it's still the board's authority to decide if a book doesn't comply with the proviso as is written now, because
Correct.
we as a board decide if something is of prurient nature or is misfiled with in the wrong section. So we still have that authority.
You do.
We have that authority.
And you have the responsibility when you certify that you don't have any.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But that's
Yes.
that's the board's authority to make that
Correct.
decision.
But within the laws that she just told us, the state laws that say 18 has to be.
The state
no-
laws are,
Not important.
the proviso is totally ambiguous in terms of, it doesn't, I mean, I know the state law lists things that they consider prurient, but it's in the context of the general quality of the book. So
Or the
we have to look.
community, right?
You
Or
can't
aside
take
as a whole.
excerpts, you can't, you know, it has to be on the standards of the book taken as a whole. So those kinds of things come into play. And so we are given the responsibility of making those decisions, not the
We
state
are
library,
responsible
Correct.
to state funding
not
at
the
state
state
level.
library, not the state senators. It is our decision as to whether something fits in those categories. And then we place
And
the
the
book in the
community
appropriate
standards.
place.
But now, like we had the books, like you showed us how you order the books and the age group. So now, going forward, if we were to implement this, any books that said that they were for 13 to 18, they would automatically be put into the adult section.
If you wanted that to happen, what I want to point out is we just,
It's not 13 to 18. That's what she just said.
that's what.
It has to go to
That's
the
what she
higher.
just
That's
said,
what
it
our
has to go up.
YA, well, that's her recommendation.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately up to y'all. But what I wanted to say was y'all just approved that new application that has the sections.
Yes.
And we've been working on that to make that so the parent can select, my child can select from the E and J or just the E or the Y and J. You know, we have these new, so I think we may need to pause on that for right now, because if we do that card that you can check out YA, J, and E, and then we move the YA books into adult, which I still think we need to think about.
This has come on, I mean, with all due respect,
okay.
we're just hearing this tonight for the first time. You haven't even had a chance to look at it. I think that we shouldn't make any attempt at decisions this evening.
Oh, no.
I was just going to say, I think that y'all need the opportunity to look at this recommendation, and I'll send it to you. Like I said, I haven't really had a chance, and I'll be in risk management tomorrow, but I will send it out to you. I may not be able to answer all your questions. I'll have to go back to Lisa and say, is this what you intended? Is this what you meant? You know, with your questions. But I wanted to say that we were working on this new application, but I think this new guidance is going to change how that application works. So we may want to pause that for a minute, because if we launched that in
Right.
January without knowing what is YA, if we're going to have a YA, and we have that on the application, I was just going to say, if that's okay for staff to pause that until you're all able to understand this new thing and how it will affect that, the new application that we were working on, to essentially give parents more control of what their children had access to, which was the goal. Like, inform them of what is in this collection, give them the option of, this is what my child has access to while they're in the library. Give them the control. It's their children. They should have the choice, and we're trying to make it easy for them to see where these things are, educate them. But if you're looking at now changing where these sections are located, that's going to sort of mess up that previous decision that y'all
Well,
made.
and it may come down to, as I said a minute ago, just semantics. That we still have a young adult section. We can call it teen if you want to, but it should be, that section, in my opinion, should be separate from adult. I don't want to mix that, because otherwise it loses its meaning. I mean, we call it young adult, and everybody understood what young adult meant. It's a universal term. Okay, if that's not a term we want to use anymore, then we use another term.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea, 18 and up, when you draw the line on young adult. I mean,
I think, though, if I may, I do think, though, that everyone doesn't agree or understand what young adult means. I think that's a part of the issue right there, is that I think librarians, people who are in the libraries, I do think that these two terms, teen and YA, have become this thing that they're not the same.
synonymous,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're not the same.
But they're not.
well,
In a parent's
semantically,
perspective,
they're
Yes.
not. Yeah.
That's
And
not
I
me.
think for our general public who we serve, that can be very confusing, because they're not the same.
And if that's helpful to rename it, it's something that we'd be
That's-
happy to do, and then
yeah. I-
make sure
I
they
wouldn't have- I wouldn't
still
have a problem
know.
with that.
Do publishers are they ever more specific with, the age, late limits? So do they ever say 13 to 17, or is it always such a huge range?
It isn't. It isn't always such a huge range.
Okay.
Sometimes it's 13 to 15. I mean,
Okay,
it
that's
really,
what I'm
it can
asking.
be.
So then it's very obvious
yeah.
that it's a teen book.
Yeah, it can be, or 11 to 13
Okay,
even.
but
I
it's
mean,
when it says
yes.
and up, because that could be 13
Yes.
to
And from what
16, right?
I've seen and experienced, it's more often this age and up, this age and up. I mean, if there was a range, we would have more information to know.
Right.
I feel like I've seen more defined ranges in like the tween ages, like grades 6 through 8.
When they're going from that juvenile chapter book into the teen
Once you
books.
get into
Right, but
like,
once
the
you
high
get to
school
13, I
range.
think what's happened with publishers, it's like, oh, well, okay, they can read at this level, so it's fine. But
anything goes.
I think that has become problematic. I mean, I think it has become problematic for libraries and for parents. And so this is an attempt to help both of those groups of people.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we pause what we have in place at the moment until
We can do more.
I don't know which meeting.
For the library card
Yeah,
application.
well, and defining teen versus young adult. Maybe January meeting, begin working on that.
Do I have a second
I second.
discussion?
That's fine.
All those in favor? Unanimous. We're batting it down.
Thank you all again for having me. I'm happy to come back, and I'm happy to answer any questions offline, too.
Thank you.
Offline.
Thank you, so helpful.
Okay. Oh, Hap has a comment.
Well, I have a comment about, which one of our speakers brought up tonight is in the letter, Senator Rice's letter to you of October 8th. He indicates that there is an undefined group of citizens with ambiguous authority and unknown professional expertise evaluate whether the library is in compliance with the proviso. It strikes me as undermining the role both of the librarians and the authority of the board, and its due processes, the processes that we've already brought up. Because librarians using professional standards and professional sources, and we have an established material development policy. The librarians determine which books to purchase and where to place them. And as pointed out earlier, BookLooks is not a professional source, and as far as I know, its ratings are not used by librarians. And so in contrast to an ad hoc group, the local library board has the authority to decide placement or retention of books. That's our job. The public input is respected, and there's a clearly defined process for the public to request reconsiderations or decisions about book acquisition or their placement that the librarians may have made. And I might add, this year the board has voted that certain books be moved from young adult or whatever we're going to call it now, teens, to the adult section. And two of the books on Senator Rice's letter that was listed have been reviewed by the board, and 6 more are scheduled to be reviewed. So the process is working. I don't see why we need ad hoc groups of citizens providing lists of books using poor sources and having no expertise in the process. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Can I comment on that? No, not Hal himself, but on his comments. So you're saying that the input of the community is not important to our reconsideration forms?
Absolutely.
Are you saying that parents are not allowed to respond to the librarians and what they are picking for our children? Like, are you saying that the community should not be involved in this?
Absolutely not. We have a reconsideration process by which, and we have public commentary.
But you just said
by
that
which,
the list of books that was brought, we were reviewing. So the community is taking the same list that is part of that letter, and they are doing reconsideration forms.
yes, and that's what
And
they
then
should
we
be
have-
doing.
So the process is working, but on the other way with the community's input.
He's saying that the senator didn't need to put it in the letter, that we needed a committee outside that, that the public, at least I think this is.
No, that's correct.
That the public has the ability to come on their own, like they have been doing, and do the reconsideration process. That he didn't need to form an ad hoc committee in order to do this, to put this out to us. We already have the procedure in place.
But isn't that the community pretty much telling them that the board is
Is
not
the
doing their
community
job
that's
yet?
coming forward his ad hoc committee? We don't know. Because
I
we
mean,
don't know who's on his
we don't
committee.
know who they are. We don't know anything about their
But
expertise.
they're
We
doing
we don't know how they were
reconsideration forms. It's
chosen.
not like they're making the final say.
That's what we're saying. Are the people that are doing the reconsideration forms, are they members of his committee? We don't know that.
Well, Mr.
But-
Rice is right here. Why don't we ask him to respond to that?
Who was on your ad hoc committee?
It was not a particular ad hoc committee that I appointed. Now, I would have to go back and look at my letter. You're saying that I appointed an ad hoc committee?
It says you had a group of citizens.
That's right. Had a group of citizens that came to me with concerns.
What does it read?
And Ms. Aiken is right on with her interpretation of what the intent of the proviso is. And I appreciate her coming up and saying that. And I think the discussion you've had tonight is great. But, you've got this issue of whether 16 or 17 or 18-year-olds an adult or a teenager. But I don't want to get into that tonight because you don't have it. But the ad hoc committee is the citizens that I have, that I represent. I represent 100 and something thousand people. And anybody can call me at any time and have a discussion with me, and I'm here for you. My cell phone is on the internet, and I will answer it unless I'm in a board meeting like this tonight. Anytime, and I will talk to anybody, and I'll listen to anybody, and that's what I did. And after I listened to a group of people that had concerns that provided me information, I sent Ms. Aiken a letter saying that I'm concerned about it. She is responsible for not running the board here, but she's responsible for ensuring that the funding goes out in accordance with the law. And that's her job. Now, you know, the question was asked a minute ago, what happens if you don't comply? That's the next step. I don't want to go to that step. I want this board to make their own decision. I want to know that this board is in one of the most conservative counties in the state of South Carolina and the United States. And we need to watch out for our children and take care of our children. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Well, we respect that, but it would have been nice if you could have contacted either myself or Stephanie and asked us because we've been working on these policies since this board has come on
He's been at town halls. He's been at several places.
but not to the library board.
Yeah, but he's on the community. He's part of the community that you can easily have
I'm
access
just saying that we have been doing what the proviso said, and to assume that we
Can I
weren't.
ask a question? And I'll be glad to be involved as much as you. I'll do it in public, I'll do it in private. You know, obviously you've got to be, if you're gonna have a public meeting, it's gonna be public. I'll be glad to meet one-on-one with you, but I think it's important, you got a proviso. The form has been revised, so you can read the proviso. I don't think there's any question what the proviso says or the intent of it, but did the board vote on that proviso and say you're in compliance with that proviso?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
Senator Rice, I tasked several constituents with a job of rating the books in the Pickens County libraries to assess if they follow the proviso requirements. That sounds to me like you formed a committee that undermines the responsibility of this board.
I had individuals come to me concerned. I said, don't just tell me you don't like what's there. Give me the facts. Give me something that can support what I'm saying. Give me something that can support the letter. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've looked at some of this stuff and I don't want to read it. I don't want to have to read it in whole, because I tell you what, it's not pleasant to read some of the stuff that has come forward. But I've read enough to know that there seem to be issues and we need to deal with it. If you're complaining that I did not come to the board and ask the board, to remove these books, I think if a book is under reconsideration, I think it ought to be removed immediately and then put back. But anyway, that's y'all's policy on how you do that. But I know what the ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal is to protect the children and the teenagers of not only this county, but of the entire United States from material that should not should not be altering their minds moving forward until they become adults. And when they become adults at 18.
Well, I can only take you at your word here, but this sounds to me like you're undermining the responsibility of the librarians and this board. And this board has the authority to decide what books and where they're placed.
I don't disagree with that, but they also don't have to take the state funding. I am responsible for the state funding. And I put that proviso in, and that's the only tool I have to deal with this board. You don't have to take that state funding. You can say we don't want it and you can turn it down. That's fine.
But we have done the things that are required in there in the proviso. We have moved books to different sections. We have developed the library card form, the policy of the age groups.
Do you believe you have, based on the information that we got tonight, do you believe you have complied with the intent of the proviso as the books are in the library right now?
Yes, because we are working on, and we have all the reconsideration processes in place, and we read the book in its entirety.
You got to do what the proviso says. You know, if the proviso's gone next year, then you don't have to do that. But I know what the intent of the proviso is. If somebody brings me books that are in there that I believe violate that proviso, then I'll have to take the next step. But I don't want to do that. I want this board to do what the board needs to do. You're appointed by county council to do the right thing. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Going back to what I mentioned, I remember the signing of the proviso compliance, but it was not brought to a vote to the board. I don't remember that. It was, we were told we were in compliance and that she would sign it before the board.
That's right. It was signed in front of the board.
Before the board, but we didn't vote.
The only requirement is that the chair sign it. That's the requirement.
Saying that
There's
we're
not a
responsible
requirement for a
in
vote.
compliance, right? The board as a whole, not just the chair.
Well, I mean, do you disagree that we didn't comply?
Yes.
We have a reconsideration.
We voted yes.
We have a reconsideration request. We have
don't
materials.
a collection policy,
Pardon me?
We do.
You do.
but we voted against it. I did.
Well, the board
But
didn't.
the board didn't.
But you asked if I was thinking that we were in compliance, and I don't think we are.
Well, the majority of the board did. But anyway, I really feel where we are right now is to evaluate this. I don't want to see a wholesale reshuffling of the library over a semantic issue, so I want to take a look at that and see if we can just change some of the terminology and maintain the integrity of the library.
According to
And maybe it would be clear if it was called the teen section. It doesn't.
Young adult.
Huh?
Young adult.
Young,
A teen and a young adult.
and young adult section. But,
The only place that we have labeled
but,
as young adult area says teen area, so.
Oh,
But
And
in the
that's-
catalog it's Y.
But in the catalog it says Y, and that's,
but we clearly need to evaluate that.
I
And,
think
yeah.
you need to discuss that as part of everything else now.
Madam Chairman, I
Right,
make a
yeah.
motion
We
we
have
close our meeting.
yeah.
Can I make that motion?
any other comments?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to second the adjournment?
I'll second.
Second.
All those in favor?